Hey guys, the Subaru project is complete now, and I couldn't resist and I started it without the exhaust, so this might be a little loud, so you might want to turn the volume down. It took us some time to figure out the next couple steps. Since it wasn't financially feasible to rebuild the old motor, we looked around for a replacement used motor. We were able to find a parts car with 74,000 miles and are swapping the motor into this car. The motor still had the original timing belt and the head gaskets were starting to leak, so I'm going to be replacing all that stuff before the motor goes in. In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove and replace the timing belt and all the related components. So let's get started. First off, we remove the drive belt and the stretch belt. This belt requires the use of a special tool, but I made a video showing you how you can do it without needing that tool. Don't forget to check out that video after you watch this one. Once all that's off, I removed the small timing cover and I lined up the timing marks on the crank and on the cam pulley. Then I removed the crank bolt, the pulley, and the large timing cover. I made sure all the timing marks were lined up on the crank pulley and both cam pulleys, and I marked the belt and the pulleys. Since I'm going to be replacing the belt, this wasn't necessary, but it will be useful to see the marks on the pulleys later. Now it's time to remove the belt. I started by removing the idler rollers. This one comes off first, this one second, and finally this one. Just a warning, the passenger cam is under pressure from the timing belt, and it will turn clockwise a little bit off its mark when you remove the top idler. It's okay if it does, I'll show you how to fix that later, but once that's off, we can remove the timing belt. At this point, you would begin the procedure to remove the head gaskets. I bought a kit that comes with a new water pump, a new tensioner, so I'm going to be replacing all those as well. First, I removed the thermostat, and I'm going to be reusing that. Then I removed the tensioner and the water pump. The new water pump comes with a metal gasket, and this gets torqued to 12 Newton meters. Once that's on, I put on the new tensioner. This gets torqued to 35 Newton meters. Don't pull the pin out just yet. Next, I put on the toothed roller. This gets torqued to 35 Newton meters as well. Now I can put on the timing belt. The belt has 3 lines on it. The longer section between marks goes on the passenger side. I used clamps to hold the timing belt on the cam pulleys after lining up the marks. I lined up the crank marks first, then the driver's side pulley. The passenger pulley will need to be turned counterclockwise with a 17mm wrench to line up the marks since the pulley spun from the pressure. Once the belt and pulley marks line up and are held in place using the clamps, I turn the passenger pulley slightly clockwise to give the belt a little slack for the top idler roller. Once that's on and torqued to 35 Newton meters, the passenger pulley can be rotated back to line up the cam marks with the mark on the head. The passenger side doesn't have a clear mark like the driver's side pulley, so it is important to make a mark before you remove the old belt. The mark on the pulley is going to line up with the seam on the head where the cam cradle meets the cylinder head. Once everything is lined up, I pushed on the belt from the bottom to make room for the bottom roller. This also gets torqued to 35 Newton meters. I double checked the torque on all the rollers and the tensioner. At this point, as long as all the marks line up, you can pull out the tensioner pin. It's a good idea to turn the engine over slowly and make sure there is no resistance. 2 full rotations of the crank will line up the timing marks on the pulleys with the marks on the head. Since this car is a manual, I need to replace the belt guard. There needs to be about a 1mm gap between the belt and the guard. Now that you're done with the timing belt, you can replace the covers, replace the crank pulley, and tighten the crank bolt. This gets torqued to 130 Newton meters. For those of you wondering, this bolt was loosened and tightened by using a pry bar through the torque converter plate to hold the crankshaft from spinning. So that's it for this video. I'm working on a video about how to remove and clean the heads. That's coming up soon, but thanks for watching and stay tuned for more videos.